Imagine entering one of the most lavish palaces ever built. Gilded halls gleam, chandeliers sparkle, and silk and satin seem endless, but take one deep breath, and a stench hits so strong it could wilt roses from 20 paces. Welcome to 17th century Versailles, where beauty collided with brutality and elegance mingled with filth. Behind the jewels and titles, royal women endured a hidden hygiene nightmare. Today we dive headfirst, metaphorically thankfully, into the shockingly unsanitary lives of noble women at the height of French royal power. These are the 6 worst hygiene habits of royal women, and you are not ready. Number 1. Bathing. If you were a woman of noble birth in 17th century France, you were expected to embody grace, charm, and flawless fashion at all times. Yet behind the silken ceremony, personal hygiene took a disturbing turn. Bathing, the very act we now equate with cleanliness, was often avoided like the plague. Medical science lagged far behind common sense, and doctors warned that warm water was dangerous. They believed it opened the pores, allowing disease to seep into the body from the air itself. Reinforcing this fear was the powerful influence of the church, which condemned bathhouses as places of vanity and temptation. Together, these beliefs slowly pushed an entire culture away from water. Women had no private baths and certainly no daily showers. In truth, most rarely bathed at all. A full body wash was seen as unnecessary, risky, or even sinful. Instead, noble women relied on small rituals of surface cleaning. Hands, faces, and sometimes necks were wiped with damp cloths, though rarely soaked in water. These cloths were often moistened with alcohol, vinegar, or even saliva, substances believed to cleanse without exposing the skin too deeply. When bathing did occur, it was hardly a relief. Baths were communal, with families sharing the same tub one after another. Men went first, leaving women to step into water that was lukewarm, murky, and filled with residue, assuming any water remained at all. The consequences were impossible to hide. Visitors frequently remarked on the overpowering odor drifting through the halls of Versailles, a heavy blend of old perfume, sweat, animal fat, and mildew. The royals cared deeply about appearance, but their definition of cleanliness was radically different. Women were expected to be paragons of beauty and refinement, adorned in jewels and powder, yet beneath the finery was skin that had not touched soap in months. It was a cruel contradiction, looking magnificent from a distance and far from pleasant up close. This quiet reality lingered beneath smiles, courtly rituals, and rigid expectations, hidden carefully behind perfume, posture, and practiced elegance daily. Number 2. Menstrual hygiene. For royal women, menstruation was another quiet ordeal hidden beneath layers of silk and ceremony. In the 17th century, there were no modern sanitary products, no privacy, and very little medical understanding. Menstrual blood was widely viewed as dangerous or shameful, surrounded by superstition and fear. Women were often warned that it weakened the body or disrupted proper behavior, reinforcing silence rather than care. Instead of pads or tampons, women relied on folded linen rags, scraps of cloth, or wool, tucked into undergarments that were rarely washed. These makeshift solutions were reused repeatedly, dried by fires, and shared among servants tasked with laundering them. Cleanliness depended entirely on access to fresh fabric, something even noblewomen did not always control. In crowded palaces like Versailles, privacy was scarce, making basic management both stressful and humiliating. Medical advice offered little relief. Doctors prescribed rest, bloodletting, or herbal remedies, believing menstruation needed to be regulated rather than supported. Baths were discouraged, leaving women uncomfortable for days at a time. Heavy dresses, tight corsets, and layered skirts only made the experience more exhausting, especially during court appearances where absence was frowned upon. The risks were serious. Poor hygiene increased infections, rashes, and chronic pain, yet these conditions were rarely documented. Like many aspects of female health, menstruation was endured quietly, hidden behind etiquette and perfume. For royal women, maintaining grace meant suppressing discomfort, proving once again that beneath the grandeur of court life, the female body paid a constant, unseen price daily. Before we jump to the next shocking hygiene habit, hit subscribe for more shocking history. Number 3. Toilets. Now, if menstrual hygiene wasn't shocking enough, the next habit, or rather the absence of one, is something we completely take for granted today: toilets. The Palace of Versailles was an architectural masterpiece, overflowing with luxury and power. Yet here's the brutal truth, it had almost no proper toilets, hundreds of rooms, endless guests, and barely a functioning bathroom anywhere. Instead, court life depended on chamber pots, small portable bowls tucked beneath beds, behind curtains, or inside closets. When nature called, you used the pot, and afterward, someone, sometimes not even you, emptied it straight out a window. If the wind shifted or the street below was crowded, an unlucky passerby received a filthy surprise. Some courtiers didn't even bother with pots at all. Men were known to urinate from balconies or relieve themselves openly in palace gardens. Visitors and foreign dignitaries were horrified by what they saw. This wasn't rare misconduct, it was routine. The palace earned a reputation for its suffocating stench, with hallways doubling as makeshift toilets. Imagine navigating those corridors as a royal woman, gliding through layers of silk and lace, lifting your skirts not to display embroidery but to avoid stepping in human waste. Conditions became so unbearable that by 1715, a royal decree ordered palace corridors to be cleaned once a week. Not daily, not after events, once a week, because that alone counted as progress. Then there was wiping. Toilet paper didn't exist. People relied on cloth scraps, straw, leaves, or in desperate moments, their own hands. Washing afterward was minimal, if it happened at all. When waste disposal meant windows and hygiene tools were primitive, parasites and disease thrived, turning royal luxury into something deeply revolting for everyone involved back then daily. Number 4. Food. Now we turn to something meant to bring pleasure. Food. Royal banquets were legendary, with tables sagging under meat pies, pastries, roasted pheasants, and sugared fruits. Yet beneath the spectacle hid a nauseating truth. The palace kitchens suffered the same sanitation nightmares as the rest of Versailles, and sometimes worse. The plumbing was so primitive that raw sewage occasionally backed up into cooking spaces. Records even suggest that wastewater once reached the private kitchen of Queen Marie Antoinette, with disastrous consequences for food safety. Without refrigeration, ventilation, or proper waste disposal, contamination became routine. Meat spoiled fast, fruits and vegetables sat exposed for days. Rats, insects, and other pests moved freely, but the meals kept coming anyway, served straight to Europe's most powerful elite. The result was constant illness. Stomach pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and infections were common, but parasites were the most horrifying outcome. Intestinal worms thrived, especially tapeworms contracted from undercooked meat prepared in filthy conditions. Even King Louis XIV was not immune. He is said to have expelled a tapeworm nearly 6 feet long, a grotesque reminder that royal status offered no protection from bad hygiene. For women at court, every meal was a performance. They were expected to dine delicately, converse politely, flirt charmingly, and entertain effortlessly. All the while, many endured nausea, cramps, and lingering sickness in silence. Appearances mattered more than comfort, and suffering was hidden behind fine manners, painted smiles, and perfectly folded napkins. Through every bite they forced themselves to swallow daily. Number 5. Wigs. If Versailles was the beating heart of Europe's fashion obsession, its strongest pulse lived in the wigs and hairstyles of royal women. These were not simple hairdos, they were towering monuments. Styles rose feet above the head, decorated with ribbons, pearls, miniature gardens, and even tiny ships. Yes, ships, detailed replicas balanced atop powdered curls, frozen mid-sail. Creating these spectacles required more than hair alone. Women packed their heads with wire frames, horsehair, and padding made from wool or cotton. Once the structure stood, generous layers of pomade followed, usually rendered animal fat like beef tallow, used to mold and preserve the design. That grease held everything together, but it also trapped heat and filth, creating the perfect breeding ground for lice. Hair was rarely washed, and wigs were almost never removed for cleaning. Lice infestations weren't unusual, they were expected. Entire colonies thrived inside these elaborate constructions. To cope, noblewomen carried long-handled silver lice claws, ornate tools designed to scratch without disturbing the style. It wasn't strange to see a woman pause mid-conversation or between sips of wine to discreetly relieve the itch. Despite the misery, no one dared step out of line. At court, appearance meant survival. Falling out of fashion could cost influence, favor, or status. Even if your scalp crawled and your hair reeked of old fat, the performance continued. These wigs were not only unsanitary, they were dangerous. Some were so heavy they caused lasting neck pain. Others caught fire when brushed too close to candle flames. Still, they remained mandatory. Poor women avoided the torment entirely by shaving their heads. But for noblewomen, hair was power. It was their crown, even when it concealed an entire living ecosystem beneath it there. Number 6. Childbirth. Finally, we reach what may be the most intimate and agonizing chapter of a woman's life: childbirth. For royal women, the pain was only part of the ordeal because it unfolded in public. In 17th century France, when a queen or high-ranking noble went into labor, it became a national spectacle. The birthing chamber filled with courtiers, physicians, priests, and nobles, all present to observe. Not to help, not to comfort. To watch. When Queen Marie Thérèse gave birth, the room was so crowded it felt more like a theater than a place of healing. This was no accident. Royal deliveries had to be witnessed to prevent scandal. Many feared a stillborn child or a daughter might be secretly replaced with a healthy male heir. To avoid suspicion, every moment happened in plain sight. That meant the mother, racked with pain and fear, endured one of life's most vulnerable moments surrounded by an audience. There was no privacy, no dignity, only expectation. Marie Antoinette famously collapsed after giving birth, overwhelmed by heat and the crushing crowd. She was far from alone. Many women fainted, sobbed, or suffered complications while being stared at like performers on a stage. Childbirth itself was extremely dangerous, medical knowledge was limited, and antibiotics did not exist. 1 in 3 children died before reaching 3 years old. Mothers faced terrifying mortality rates, often from infections caused by unwashed hands and unsterilized instruments. So while royal births were celebrated across the nation, they were also soaked. So, there you have it, 6 grotesque truths hidden inside the golden halls of Versailles. Beneath glittering gowns, perfume-soaked corridors, and jeweled crowns, royal women endured lives of discomfort, indignity, and constant danger that would make modern readers recoil. In public, they embodied grace and refinement. In private, they scratched, suffered, and survived in ways history rarely mentions. If royal life seemed glamorous, think again. Subscribe for more hidden history, and comment your thoughts below to explore the filthier truths behind power and privilege.